Lamar Jackson just got robbed in broad daylight, and nobody's talking about calling the cops. Picture this. Jackson throws for 4,172 yards, 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. That's not a typo, 4. And he's got a passer rating that makes other QBs look like they're throwing with oven mitts. He's also the first-team All-Pro quarterback. You know, that thing where all the pros vote for who's the best at the position? Yeah, that guy, but somehow Josh Allen wins MVP. Now look, Allen's great. No disrespect to the guy, but Jackson literally checked every box except the one that says, "Do you play in a bigger market?" And here's the kicker. One voter put Lamar in 4th place. 4th, that's not voter fatigue, that's voter malfunction. The man led the Ravens to offensive records that would make Madden players jealous, and he's watching Allen hold the trophy like it's a participation award. But here's where it gets even more ridiculous. This isn't even the first time this exact scenario has played out recently. Remember 2020? Derrick Henry rushes for 2,000 yards, wins Offensive Player of the Year, and gets exactly 0 MVP votes. 0! Aaron Rodgers takes home the trophy instead, and Henry's sitting there like, I literally carried an entire offense on my back for 17 weeks. But sure, give it to the quarterback. The bias is so obvious, it's basically wearing a neon sign. The Drew Brees tragedy. Now, if you think getting robbed once is bad, let me introduce you to the most cursed man in MVP voting history. Drew Brees didn't just get snubbed once or twice. He got rejected 4 times. 2006, 2009, 2011, and 2018. 4 runner-up finishes. 4 times watching someone else give an acceptance speech. 4 times wondering what he has to do to win this thing. Drew Brees is the MVP equivalent of that kid who always finishes second in spelling bees. Except instead of spelling bees, it's the biggest individual award in football, and instead of getting a ribbon, he gets eternal frustration. Let's focus on 2011, because that's when the robbery was so blatant, it should have been investigated by the FBI. Brees threw for 5,476 yards and 46 touchdowns, breaking Dan Marino's sacred passing yards record, a record that stood for 27 years. He didn't just break it, he shattered it by nearly 400 yards. This man rewrote NFL history with a Sharpie, and the voters said, nah, we're good. Let's give it to Aaron Rodgers. Don't get me wrong, Rodgers was incredible that year with 45 touchdowns and only 6 picks. But Brees literally made people believe the impossible was possible. He led the league in passing yards 7 times in his career, had a completion percentage that looked like a video game cheat code, won a Super Bowl MVP, brought hope to post-Katrina New Orleans, and still couldn't get regular season MVP voters to show him love. At this point, I'm convinced the voters just didn't want to pay for shipping to Louisiana. The disrespect is generational. When defense doesn't matter. Here's a fun question. When's the last time a defensive player won MVP? Go ahead, I'll wait. Give up? It was 1986. Lawrence Taylor. That's almost 40 years ago. And that brings us to one of the most criminal snubs in modern history. J.J. Watt in 2014. This man wasn't just good. He was a horror movie for offensive coordinators. Watt had 20.5 sacks, which is already insane. But he also had 29 tackles for loss, 4 forced fumbles, and, wait for it, 2 touchdowns. As a defensive lineman, he was basically playing offense-defense and living rent-free in quarterbacks' nightmares. His own teammate, Ryan Fitzpatrick, who played against some legends, said it was the best individual season he'd ever seen. Period. But here's the problem. Watt plays defense, and the V in MVP apparently stands for very obviously a quarterback. Aaron Rodgers won it with 38 touchdowns and 5 picks, which fair, that's elite. But when's the last time a quarterback changed the entire offensive game plan just by existing? Watt did that every single week. The man was double-teamed, triple-teamed, probably had the mascot trying to block him, and to Tolfond, he still dominated. Teams literally restructured their entire offensive schemes around not letting Watt touch the quarterback. And he still got to them. If defense wins championships, shouldn't it win MVPs? Apparently not in the NFL, where quarterbacks get participation trophies just for showing up to the stadium. The receiver disrespect. All right, defensive legends getting snubbed is one thing. But what happens when you're a receiver who literally breaks the touchdown record and your own quarterback wins MVP instead? Yeah, let's talk about Randy Moss in 2007, because this one hurts. The Patriots go 16-0. Tom Brady throws for 50 touchdowns. Randy Moss catches 23 of them, an NFL record that still stands today, almost 2 decades later. And Brady wins MVP. Now, I love Tom Brady like I love my morning coffee. Both keep me going, but let's do some quick math here. 23 of Brady's 50 touchdowns were caught by one guy. That's 46%, nearly half. Without Moss, Brady's throwing to who exactly? Wes Welker running slot routes and hoping for the best. Moss was running past defensive backs like they were traffic cones, making catches that defied the laws of physics, and basically turning Brady into a god overnight. Okay, Brady was already great, but Moss made him legendary that year. They broke records together, terrorized defenses together, and made the Patriots the most unstoppable force in football. And what does Moss get? A nice little thanks for coming pat on the back and a front row seat to Brady's MVP speech. The disrespect is real. Moss was so good in 2007 that EA Sports had to nerf him in Madden because it wasn't fair to use him. But MVP voters? They're good with just giving it to the quarterback. Because why would we reward the guy who actually caught the touchdowns when we can reward the guy who threw them? Makes total sense. Not. And while we're on the topic of receivers getting disrespected, let's talk about Jerry Rice. You know, just the greatest wide receiver of all time. Most receptions in NFL history, most receiving yards, most touchdowns. Literally every major receiving record belongs to this man. 20 seasons of absolute dominance. And guess how many MVPs he won? 0. Not one. Not even a sympathy vote. Rice finished second in MVP voting twice, but never actually won. How is that even possible? This man was so good they named records after him. He caught passes from Joe Montana, Steve Young, and still made everyone else look like they were playing a different sport. But apparently, being the most dominant player at your position for 2 decades isn't enough. You also have to play quarterback. The position bias is so strong, it's practically written into the rule book at this point. Running back robbery. Now let's talk about running backs, because they get disrespected worse than kickers at Pro Bowl voting. Barry Sanders in 1997 rushed for 2,053 yards. That's 2,000 yards on a 9-7 Detroit Lions team that had absolutely no business winning games. Sanders was the offense. The defense? Decent. The passing game? Questionable at best. Barry Sanders? Absolutely transcendent. He put the entire team on his back, juked defenders into early retirement, and made highlight reels that still get millions of views today. And the MVP voters said, yeah, that's cool, but what about Brett Favre? So they gave it to both of them. Co-MVPs. Are you kidding me right now? Favre had a great season, don't get me wrong. 3,800 yards, 35 touchdowns with the Packers going 13-3. But Sanders carried a mediocre team to the playoffs with sheer willpower and ankle-breaking moves that should have been illegal. The fact that he had to share the award is one of the biggest disgraces in NFL history. It's like winning the lottery and having to split it with your cousin who bought one ticket. Except your cousin is also really good at football, so everyone acts like it's fair. Barry deserved that trophy solo, with confetti and a parade. Speaking of running back disrespect, let's rewind to 1995. Emmitt Smith had one of the greatest seasons a running back has ever had. 1,773 rushing yards, 375 receiving yards, and an NFL record 25 touchdowns. 25. That's more touchdowns than some teams score in an entire season. He was a walking, talking touchdown scoring machine. Every time he touched the ball, there was a legitimate chance he was going to the end zone. And Brett Favre, yes, him again, the MVP thief strikes twice, won the award instead. Favre threw for 4,400 yards and 38 touchdowns, which is incredible. But he also threw 20-plus interceptions for 3 straight years. Meanwhile, Emmett was out here playing mistake-free football, dominating defenses, and practically gift-wrapping wins for the Cowboys with a bow on top. But nope, the voters said, Favre's got that Packers magic, and gave him the trophy. Emmett's sitting there like, I scored 25 times, and you're telling me it's not enough. This is the equivalent of cooking a 5-star Michelin meal and losing to someone who made really good toast. The disrespect is astronomical. The weird ones? Okay, we've covered recent snubs, legendary snubs, and position bias snubs. But now it's time to talk about the weird ones. The head scratchers. The how did this even happen moments. Starting with 1982, a strike-shortened season where the NFL only played 9 games. Limited data, limited highlights, and apparently limited brain cells from the voters. Because they gave the MVP award to Mark Moseley, a kicker. Now, Moseley was good, don't get it twisted. He made clutch kicks and helped the Redskins win games. But MVP? The most valuable player in the entire league. Meanwhile, Dan Fouts threw for over 2,800 yards and 17 touchdowns in those 9 games. Let's do the math real quick. That's over 300 yards per game, in an era where passing offenses weren't exactly air raid systems. Fouts was slinging the ball like his life depended on it, carrying the Chargers to a 6-3 record, and the voters said, yeah, but did you see Moseley kick that 47-yarder? This is like giving the Oscar for Best Actor to the guy who held the camera. Absolute insanity. And then there's 1987, when John Elway won MVP despite being named second-team All-Pro. You know who was first team? Joe Montana. The same Joe Montana who was objectively having a better season by basically every measurable statistic. But Elway got 36 votes to Montana's 18. Why? Because narrative matters more than stats, apparently. Elway was carrying a less talented Broncos team, and voters absolutely love a good underdog story. But Montana was out here being, well, Joe Montana, winning games, being clutch in the fourth quarter, and doing literally everything right. The voters basically said, we know you're better, Joe, but John's story is more compelling. This is like giving the MVP to the guy who drove the bus instead of the guy who actually won the game. Makes zero sense.